Okay. Okay. Very good morning. Today we'll study the eyeball, extraocular muscles, and visual pathways. Okay. Now, the first we understand the surface anatomy of the right eye. See, the palpebral fissures is the space between upper and lower eyelids that exposes the eyeball. That is, the palpebral fissures means the eyelids, the upper and lower eyelids. Okay, the upper and lower eyelids that exposes the eyeball, that is also called as palpebra. Okay, now you can see the eyelashes. You can see the eyelashes. Okay, these are the eyelashes, and there is eyebrows. Pupil is the central area of the eye, that is called as pupil. Then there is this iris, the outer colored area, and the pupil is the central opening from where light enters, that is the pupil. Now next is the upper eyelid or palpebra, that is eyelid is also called as palpebra. Now there is lacrimal caruncle, this is called as lacrimal caruncle. Okay, then lateral commissure, this is lateral commissure. Then palpebral fissure, lower palpebral fissure, the lower eyelid, this is the lower eyelid. Okay, then this is the white area is the uh, conjunctiva. Okay, and the end of this is the medial commissure. Okay, so this is all about the surface anatomy of eye. The pupil, iris, conjunctiva, then upper eyelid, lower eyelid, upper, that is also called as palpebra, the lacrimal carbuncles, the medial commissure, lateral commissure, eyelashes, eyebrows, and pupil. This will come under the surface anatomy of eyelids. Okay, eye, right eye. Okay, so next is the accessory structures of eye. What are the accessory structures of eye? The accessory structures of eye include eyelids, eyelashes, eyebrows, lacrimal, that is tear producing apparatus, and extrinsic eye muscles. So these are the accessory structures of eye, which are the eyelids, eyelashes, which are present outside the eye. Basically, these are the accessory structures of eye. Okay, lacrimal apparatus, which produces the tear, and extrinsic eye muscles. These are the accessory eye eye structures. Okay, now you can see in this diagram. See, first in interior part you can see, suppose the eyebrows where the hairs are present, you can see the eyebrows. Okay, then there is outer is eyelashes, the hair parts, eyebrows and eyelashes. Then you can see this is your cornea, then bulbar conjunctiva, then palpebral conjunctiva. Okay, then sclerus venous sinus canal of Schell, that is called as scleral venous sinus, also called as canal Schlemm. Okay, then upper eyelid, this is outer. See, eyebrows, eyelashes, upper eyelid, this is all outsides. Then meibomian glands. Okay, then there is what is, let's, orbiculus oculi muscle. This is the orbicularis oculi muscle, the extra ocular muscle of the eye. Then at the lower you can see This is the orbicularis in the lower. This the superior orbicularis oculi, and the inferior, the whole muscle, orbicularis oculi. There is inferior oblique muscle inside here. This is inferior oblique muscle. Okay, now you can see these the posterior different things. Here you can see the levator palpebrae superioris muscle. Okay, levator palpebrae superioris. Now there is superior rectus muscle. These are the extraocular muscles. Okay, and at the lower end there is inferior rectus muscle. This is the inferior rectus muscle. Okay, these are the various muscles of the. This is the sagittal section of eye and accessory muscles. Okay, these are the various muscles. See, superior rectus muscle, inferior rectus muscle, levator palpebrae superioris, then extra. This is orbicularis oculi muscle. Okay, so these are the various muscles. Now, next you can see the extrinsic, how the extrinsic eye muscles are working and what are the various functions of those muscles. So the extrinsic eye muscles sit in the bony depression of the skull called the orbits. The eye is situated in the orbits. Okay, now the orbits help protect the eyes. So eye is a very delicate organ, so it protects the eyes and stabilize them in three-dimensional space. Okay, and anchor them to the muscles that produce their essential movements. These extrinsic eye muscles, they produces the essential movements of the eye. Okay, and the eyelids. So the extrinsic eye muscles extend from the walls of the bony orbit to the sclera. From the bony orbits, this is the, you can see, this is the bony orbit. This is your bony orbit. Okay, so it takes origin from the bony orbit, okay, to the sclera, to the anterior part of the eye. This, see, from here to here. Okay, now the intrinsic eye muscles extend from the walls of bony orbit to the sclera, that is white of the eye, and are surrounded in the orbit by significant quantity of periorbital fat. These muscles are capable of moving the eye in almost any direction. These muscles are very important. They are responsible for the movement of eye in any direction. Okay, so this 6 extrinsic eye muscles move each eye. The superior rectus, the inferior rectus, the lateral rectus, medial rectus, superior oblique, and inferior oblique. See, you can see this superior rectus, inferior rectus, lateral rectus, medial rectus, superior oblique, inferior oblique. These are the muscles which are responsible for the eye movement in any direction. Okay, in any direction I can move with the help of these 6 extrinsic muscles. Okay, next is they are supplied by cranial nerves 3, 4 and 6. Okay, in general, basically the cranial the motor part is supplied by the cranial nerves 3rd, 4th and or 6th. Okay, 3rd, 4th, 6th. In general, the motor units in these muscles are small. Some motor neurons serve only 2 or 3 muscle fibers, fewer than in other part of the bony except the larynx. See, so they are supplied by the 3rd, 4th and 6th muscles, motor units, and they have only motor neurons which are only 2 or 3 muscle fibers. Okay, their motor units have. So such small motor units permit smooth, precise and rapid eye movements. This small motor unit is responsible for their smooth, precise and rapid eye movements. You can move your eyes here. This all movement is responsible for because of it happens because of this small motor units. Okay, now the extrinsic eye muscles move the eyeball laterally. You can move it laterally, means outside. This is the lateral. So your eye muscle, you can move it laterally, medially, inside. You can move it inside. Then superiorly, you can move up. Your eye muscles move up, and the inferiorly, you can move it down also. These are the various movements of eyes, and you can rotate also. The combination of movement is when you rotate your eyes. See, you can rotate your eyes like this when you are moving here, lateral, superior, inferior. You can see my eyes. See, downwards, medially, if you move medially. So these are all the responsible for the movements of these 6 extrinsic muscles are responsible for the movement of eye. Okay, now, so the looking to the right requires simultaneous contraction of right lateral rectus and the medial left medial rectus. If I am seeing laterally at right side of mine, so my in this manner my right eye is in my right eye, my lateral rectus active, which is keeping producing the lateral movement of eyeball, and from to my left eye my medial rectus is active, which is because these movement is simultaneous. You cannot move both the eyes in different direction. Both eyes will see in the same direction. This is the key rule. So the oblique muscles perceive rotational stability of the eye. Okay. Neural circuits in the brainstem and the cerebellum coordinate, synchronize the movements of the eye. So these are the neural circuits, means the various cranial nerves which supplies the eyeball, the cranial number nerve 3, 4 and 6. So these are the responsible for the eyeball. Now you can see the anatomy of eyeball. Where is it is situated, and what are the various you can say the structures which are present in the eyeball. See, here you can see the adult eyeball measures about 2.5 centimeter in diameter. Adult eyeball is measures about 2.5 centimeters in diameter of its total surface area. Okay, only interior 1/6 is exposed. The interior 1/3. Interior 1/3 means this is your interior 1/3. Okay, this is your interior 1/3. This only interior 1/3 is exposed. Okay, now the remainder is recessed and protected by the orbit. This is your orbit, this is your bony orbit. So this other 2/3, the posterior 2/3 is protected by this orbit. Okay, now the protected by the orbit into which first fits and into which it fits. Okay, this is the bony orbit in which the eyeball is present. Okay, now anterior 1/3 is exposed. So anatomically, the wall of eye consists of 3 layers: fibrous tunic, vascular tunic and retina. Okay, so there is 3 layers of eyeball. You can see 3 layers of eyeball means fibrous tunic, the outer fibrous tunic. Then there is vascular tunic, the inner one where the blood vessels are present, the inner one, and the next is the retina where the images are present, that is called as the retina. Okay, or retina, you can say also called as retina. Okay, now about the what is the fibrous tunic. Okay, now in the superficial layer, this fibrous tunic is the superficial layer. You can say in the superficial layer of eyeball consists of interior cornea and posterior sclera. So there is interior, you can say this is the interior cornea. This is the interior cornea. This is called here the interior cornea. Okay, and posterior sclera. The structure which is present at the back is the posterior sclera. This is the You can see this is the sclera. Okay. So this is cornea, this is sclera. Next is the cornea is a transparent coat that covers the colored iris. See, this cornea is a transparent coat that covers the colored iris. You can say, I can do like this. So this cornea, this is the transparent coat that covers that colored iris. Okay, in the eye you can see there is a color. We have different eye colors like black, brown, light brown, blue, green. These are the different colors of the eye, which is actually the colors of iris, the muscles, okay, around the pupil, which so that pupil, that iris is covered by the cornea. This is the transparent coat. Now, as you can say, this is the next is the because it is covered because it is curved, the cornea helps focus light into the retina, and this cornea is curved and it focuses the light into to the retina. You can see this is your retina. You can see this is your retina. So light focuses on the retina because of this curved cornea. Okay, because its outer surface consists of non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. The middle coat of the cornea consists of collagen fibers and fibroblasts, and inner surface is simple squamous epithelium. Since the central part of cornea receives oxygen from the outside air, contact lenses that are worn for long periods of time may be permeable to permit oxygen to pass through them. Okay, so we wear the contact lenses on the cornea. The contact lenses are worn over the cornea. So this is exposed to outer air. So this is in contact with the oxygen to pass through them. Okay, this is the area where the contact lenses are worn. Now, the sclera, the hard white of eye, is a layer of dense connective tissue made up of mostly of collagen fibers and the fibroblasts. Now, about the sclera is made up of now the sclera is made up of this. This portion is the sclera. See, this is the sclera. Okay, this blue portion, this is your sclera. So this sclera is white of eye. The white color of eye is because of this sclera. Okay. So you can see the sclera. So the sclera covers the entire eyeball except the cornea. See, this sclera covers the entire eyeball. You can see this entire eyeball is covered by this sclera except the corneal area. This anterior is the cornea, okay, the curved transparent coat, and other than this area is covered by the sclera. This light blue line is the sclera. Okay, now the so this next is the and makes it more. The sclera covers the entire eyeball except the cornea. It gives shape to the eyeball, makes it more rigid, protect its inner parts, and serves as a site of attachment of extrinsic eye muscles. So this sclera is also the here. See, these are the extrinsic eye muscles. So these eye muscles are attached here. So it's also serves as the attachment to the extrinsic eye muscles. At the junction of sclera and cornea is an opening known as scleral venous sinus or canal of Schlemm. Where is the canal of Schlemm? See, you can see here at the junction of sclera and cornea. Here is the canal of Schlemm. Here Okay, the sclera venous sinus. This is the junction of this cornea and sclera. So a fluid contains aqueous humor which will be is drained into this sinus. This sinus, the canal of Schlemm, the scleral venous sinus, is filled with the aqueous humor. Okay, this is filled with this aqueous humor. Okay, now this all about the fibrous tunic. Okay, the outer fibrous tunic. Now we'll study the inner vascular tunic, the vascular area, the blood vessel, the supply of the blood, and all that in this next slide. So the vascular tunic or uvea, it is also called as uvea. Okay, so this vascular tunic is the middle layer of eyeball. It is composed of three parts: choroid, ciliary body, and iris. Okay. Now, the highly vascularized choroid, which is posterior portion of the vascular tunic, lines most of the internal surface of the sclera. Okay. Its numerous blood vessels provide nutrients to the posterior surface of the retina, and the choroid also contains melanocytes that produce the pigment melanin, which causes this layer to appear dark brown in color. See, this vascular tunic, its numerous blood vessels provide nutrients to the posterior surface of retina. Okay, this tunic, as the name suggests, it is the vascular tunic, that is means it contains all the blood vessels. All the blood flow is there in this area. You can see the blood vessels here. So this is the highly vascularized choroid. You can see this choroid, it is present here. See, this is the choroid. Okay, so this, it is choroid and it is highly vascular. See, all the blood vessels will go to this choroid. You see here. Okay, now see, the melanin, the choroid also contains melanocytes that produce the pigment melanin, which causes this layer to appear dark brown in color. Okay, this is dark brown in color, and melanin is the choroid absorbs stray rays, which prevents reflection and scattering of light within the eyeball. See, this melanin in the choroid absorbs the light rays. Okay, that which is prevents the reflection and scattering of light within eyeball. As a result, the image cast on the retina by cornea and lens remains sharp and clear. Albinos lack melanin in all parts of body, including eyes. They often need to wear sunglasses even indoors, because see, albinos are those people, you must have seen they white. Their skin color is the upper skin color is very white. Okay, they are called as albinos. So what happens in albinos? There is lack of melanin. That's why they don't have any skin color. Like we have different skin colors, na? Whitish, fair, and all. So these albinos lacks the melanin. So including the eye, they don't have melanocytes in the eye also. Okay, which absorbs the light. So they often need to wear sunglasses even in indoors, because evenly moderately bright light is perceived as bright glare due to light scattering. So the melanocytes are absent in eyeball, so they are not able to absorb the light rays. Okay, so this will what happen when the eyes light rays scatter in their eyes, they are not able to see. You must have seen people, they are not able to accept that light rays, and their eyeballs remains small, so they keep wearing eye goggles in the indoors also. Okay, so that their eyes are able to see the things properly. Okay, in the interior portion of vascular tunic, the choroid becomes the ciliary body. Okay, now in the interior portion, see, you can see this is the choroid becomes the ciliary body here. See, you can see here is the ciliary body, ye here, okay, that is ciliary muscles and its processes. This is the, okay, this is the ciliary muscles and their, this you can say this, these are the muscles and their processes. So this is the ciliary body. Now it extends from the ora serrata, the jagged anterior margin of the retina, to a point just posterior to the junction of sclera and cornea. Okay, like the choroid, the ciliary body appears dark brown in color because it contains melanin producing, the same like in choroid they contains melanocytes, so they appear brown. Same here in the ciliary body also there is melanocytes which are responsible for their color, okay, the brown color. Okay, now it's like the jagged anterior margin of the retina to the point posterior to the junction of sclera and cornea. Here is the junction of sclera and cornea. So they are present just anterior to the retina. Like the choroid, ciliary body appears dark brown in color because it contains melanin producing melanocytes. So in addition, the ciliary body consists of ciliary process and ciliary muscle. Okay. The ciliary processes are protrusion or folds on the internal surface of the ciliary body. They contain blood capillaries that secrete aqueous humors. Extending from the ciliary process of zonular fibers, these are the suspensory. These zonular fibers are the suspensory ligaments that attach to the lens. See, here you can see. I can this. See, this is zonula fibers. This is zonula fibers. Okay, so these are the ligaments which are attached to the lens. Okay, they keep the lens at place. The fibers consist of thin yellow fibrils that resemble elastic connective tissue. Okay, they consist of the elastic connective tissue. Okay, now this is all about the vascular tunic. Okay, now we have done with the fibrous tunic, the outer. Okay, then there is a vascular tunic. The fibrous tunic consists of the cornea and the sclera and the choroid. Cornea and sclera, and the vascular tunic consists of the choroid and this ciliary body and this ligaments, the sensory ligaments which are attached to the lens. Okay, now we'll study about the retina. This where the images are formed in the eye are called as retina. Okay, also called in retina. Also, some people call it retina also. So the third and inner layer of eyeball is the retina. The lines posterior 3/4 of the eyeball and is the beginning of the visual pathway. From here the visual pathway starts. This. Okay. This layer's anatomy can be viewed by ophthalmoscope or ophthalmos. The optometrist and ophthalmologist check our eyes with the help of ophthalmoscope. Okay, an instrument that shines light into the eye and allows an observer to peer through the pupil. They are able to, this opening is pupil. So from here they try to look inside the eye. They look inside the eye. Okay, providing instrument providing a magnified image of retina and its blood vessels as well as the optic nerve, that is the second cranial nerves. They are able to see these things through this retina. They through this pupil, the retina, the optic nerve too, and its blood vessels. Okay, so these are the various blood vessels which are present in the sclera of your eyeball, and this is the inside is the this is your retina. Now the surface of retina is the only place in the body where blood vessels can be viewed directly and examined for pathological changes. Okay, so this retina is the only place where the blood vessels are so superficial. You can see the blood vessels from the surface also. Okay, So in various pathological changes are like those in hypertension, the people who are suffering of hypertension, the diabetes mellitus, the cataracts, and the age-related macular diseases. These are the various pathological changes in which you can see the retina and where blood vessels can be viewed directly. Okay. Now, see, the optic disc is the site where the optic nerve 2, that is the second cranial nerve, exits the eyeball. Okay, this is the eyeball where the optic nerve 2 exits. Okay, bundled together with the optic nerve are the central retinal artery, a branch of ophthalmic artery, and the central retinal vein. Okay, so there is central retinal vein and arteries. You can see, first let me clear this. Okay, now this is the, I'll show you the optic disc. Okay, this is the optic disc. This is the optic disc. Okay, this is the optic nerve 2. Okay, optic nerve 2. Now there is the this fovea centralis is there, and where is the this, you can see the central retinal artery and vein. You can see here. See, this is the central retinal artery and vein here. Okay, this is the central retinal artery. So these are the various structures of your eye. Now, branches of the central retinal artery fans out to nourish the interior surface of the retina. See, these are the branches of your central retinal artery. You can see, it will change the color like this. Yeah, artery must be red in color. So, see, these are the central retinal artery, and branches supplies the interior of the retina. Okay, this is the branches. Now, the anterior surface of retina, the central retinal veins drains blood from the retina through the optic disc. Okay, also visible are the macula lutea and fovea centralis, which are these are the visible. You can see the you can see here the various macula lutein. This is the macula lutein. Okay, this is the macula lutein. This is the fovea centralis. See, this is fovea centralis and this is the macula lutein. Okay, so these are the various structures of eyeball in the 3 layers. Okay, you're seeing the 3 layers of eyeball here. Now, you can see we have seen the interior fibrous layer. Then there is second vascular, that is fibrous tuning, that is called as fibrous tunic. And then second is the macular vascular tuning, and the third is the retina. Okay, so now see the various responses of the pupil to the light varying brightness. Okay, brightness. See, you can see when you can see the responses of pupil. Contraction of circular muscles causes constriction of pupil. Okay, these outer circular muscles, these are when they constrict, they produces the various opening in the this pupil. Contraction of radial muscles causes dilation of pupil. Okay, contraction of circular muscles, these are when the circular muscles, there are 2 types of muscles. See, when the circular muscles contract, they causes constriction of pupil, when this pupil becomes smaller. Okay, when there is a constriction of radial muscles, their pupils dilate, means the pupils open up. Okay, at what time this will happen? When you are in very bright light. Okay, when you are very bright light and less amount of light need to be entered into the eyes. So at that time, those interior this circular muscles constrict and they keeps the pupil in the smaller size, so that this, see, for bright light, it's here for bright light. Okay, this small, they are smaller in size. Okay, now, so that less light will enter the eyes. Okay, and this is the middle one is for the normal light, which we need to see things properly. And when you're in very dark light, at night mode, you can say, so at that time you need to open up your pupils so that you'll be able to, more light will enter your eyes and you'll be able to see clearly. So this is the pupil dilates as radial muscles of the iris contract. Okay, so when the parasympathetic is active, you got constriction of muscles in response to bright light. And when there is a sympathetic activation, your pupils will dilate and you will be able to see things properly in the dark, dark mode, dark light. Okay, now there is a normal routine. This is about the response of pupil to the brightness of light. Now you can see here. See, it's here. Now, our normal retina as through an ophthalmoscope. When you see the things through ophthalmoscope, how they will look like. Blood vessels in the retina can be viewed and examined by pathological. Can be viewed and examined for the pathology. See, blood vessels, these are the various blood vessels you can see. Okay, so this, first you understand this is the nasal side. This is your nasal side, okay, the anterior part, and this is your temporal side. This is your temporal side. Okay, now see, this is the optic disc. Okay, now retinal blood vessels, these are the, you can see the blood vessels. Okay, then is macular lens. We have seen this in retina, this macular lens. Okay, and then the fovea centralis. This is the fovea centralis. Okay, now the optic disc is the site where the optic nerve exits. Okay, where from this is responsible for the exit of your optic nerve. Now, the fovea centralis is the area of the highest visual acuity. This fovea centralis is the area where there is highest visual acuity. Okay, you are able to see properly because of this fovea centralis. The images which are formed on the retina is on this fovea centralis. Okay, so these are the various. This is all about the anatomical part of your eyeball. Okay, we have seen the various layers, the fibrous tunic, the vascular tunic, the retina. Okay, the response to the light, about the cornea, sclera, choroid, ciliary body, your lens, and the muscles which are pupil and conjunctiva, and the retina where and their blood vessels. Okay, now we'll go. This all comes under the various responses of your pupil towards the light, bright light or dark light or normal light. Okay, so this is all about the anatomical part of your eyeball. Now we'll go for the visual pathways which takes these images, the sensory nerve part of your eyes to the brain. Okay, so now we'll study the visual pathways, how these various things are taken to the brain. Yeah, now the visual pathway. I can show you like in this manner. See, this is the visual pathway. So it's a little bit complicated, you can say, but you need to understand one thing. You'll just listen to this and then I'll explain to you. So the visual signals in the retina undergo considerable processing at synapses and among various types of neurons in the retina. Okay, so this is the horizontal cells, bipolar cells, and amacrine cells. So the various this pathways consists of various signals which are taken from the eyes to the brain. Okay, now Then the axons of retinal ganglion cells provide output from the retina to the brain, exiting the eyeball as the optic nerve to all the sensations of eyes. Means all the images are these sensations are taken by the your optic nerve to your brain. Okay. Now, processing of visual input in the retina, how this processing occurs in the retina, how the images are formed on the retina, and how these signals are taken from retina to the your through your optic nerve to the visual areas of your brain. Now, within the neural layer of retina, certain features of visual input are enhanced while other features may be discarded. Input from several cells may either converge on a smaller number of postsynaptic neurons or diverge to a large number. Okay. Over convergence predominates, there are only 1 million ganglion cells but 126 million photoreceptors in the human eye. There is 1 million ganglion cells in the eyeball, and there is photoreceptors are 126 photoreceptors. You heard of this rods and cones. So these are the photoreceptors. The rods and cones are the photoreceptors which are present in the eye, which receives these signals of eye, how the your light rays are floating on your retina, and they changes the this your images. Okay. Now, once receptor potentials arise in the outer segments of the rods and cones, they spread to the inner segments of the synaptic terminals. Neurotransmitter molecules released by the rods and cones induce local graded potential in both bipolar cells and horizontal cells. Between 6 to 600 rod synapses with a single bipolar cells in the output synaptic level of the retina, and a cone more often synapses with a single bipolar cell. So this is about these are the various horizontal cells and the bipolar cells which transmits the images to the brain. Now, horizontal cells transmit inhibitory signals to the bipolar cells in the areas lateral to the excitic rods and cones. Lateral inhibition on the enhances the contrast in the visual scene between the areas of retina and through the strongly stimulated adjacent areas that are more weakly stimulated. Now, the let's find the brain pathways from where this you can see the signals are taken. Okay, so first understand this. The first understand this. See, the axons within the optic nerve pass through the optic chiasma. Okay, these axons are from the optic nerve and they pass through the optic chiasma. A crossover in the a crossing point of the optic nerve. Okay, some axons. See, this is the optic. You can see actually. This is the optic. This is the optic chiasma where the crossover of the optic nerves happens. This area is the optic chiasma. It is called as optic chiasma. Okay, a crossing point of the optic nerves. The right nerve will cross towards the left brain, and the left nerve will cross over to give the signals to the right brain. Okay, after passing through the chiasma, the axon is now part of the optic tract and enters the brain, and most of them terminate in the lateral geniculate nucleus of the thalamus. So this you can see this optic chiasma, they end in the lateral geniculate nucleus. This after crossing this cornea, they see the lateral geniculate nucleus of the, this is the lateral geniculate nucleus of the thalamus here. यहाँ पे they present here in the lateral geniculate nucleus. Okay, this is the lateral geniculate nucleus. Okay, now here the synapse of the neurons where whose axons from optic radiations they project to the primary visual areas. in the occipital lobes of the cerebral cortex, and the visual perception begins. Some of the fibers in the optic tracts terminate in the supracolliculi, which control the extrinsic eye muscles, and the prerectal nuclei, which control pupillary and the accommodation reflexes. According that it can be understood. See, now next is this. You should understand this. See this visual pathways in this manner. See, the visual pathway, a partial dissection of brain reveals there is partial dissection, the one which shows the partial dissection. So the optic radiations axon extending from the thalamus to the occipital lobe. Okay, so this axons extending from the thalamus to the occipital lobe, and an object in the binocular visual field can be seen with both eyes. Binocular vision field means in the both eyes. This crossing over causes the binocular views. This binocular visual field that can be seen in both eyes. Now, say the right side, the information from the right side of the visual field on the each side projects to the left side of the brain, and information from the left side of the visual field of each eye projects to the right side of the brain. Okay, so information from left side visual field to the right side of the brain, and from the left side to the right side of the brain. The axons of ganglion cells in the temporal half of the each retina extends to the thalamus on the same side, and the axons on the ganglion cells in the nasal half of each retina extend to the thalamus of the opposite side. So you can see here there is you can understand in this better. See, this is the visual field of the right eye, and this is the yellow is the visual field of the right eye. Yes, this is the visual field of the right eye, and this is the visual field of the left eye. Okay, this is the of left eye. So, and the other thing is the optic chiasma. Then there is optic nerves which are taken from both the eyes to the optic chiasma. This is right and left eye visual field. Then you can see the binocular visual field like this, from right field to the left side, from left field to the right side. Now this is this field making the both the eyes. Then there is crossover around the through the optic nerves. There is crossover at the optic chiasma. Okay, then this is taken to the lateral geniculate nucleus of the thalamus. This is the lateral geniculate nucleus of thalamus. This is lateral geniculate nucleus. Okay, this is lateral geniculate nucleus. Okay, now this optic radiation, then primary visual area in the cerebral cortex, area 17 of the occipital lobe. So your visual area is what you can say. Your visual area is present at the occipital lobe of your brain. Okay, that is the primary visual area of the cerebral cortex, area 17. It is called as the area 17. Okay, now in this manner, so this is the visual pathway of your eyes. In other picture also you can see the visual field of the right eye, how the right eye visual field happens. So nasal half and temporal half, you can see the right eye and temporal retina, from there to the nasal retina. So there is midbrain, that is the thalamus part, then the optic radiation to the visual area at the back. Lateral geniculate nucleus on the left side, because of this is of the thalamus, and the primary visual of the cerebral cortex in this area. See, you can see this is of right side and this is of the left eye in this mode. So, and combined is shown in the here. This is about the optic pathway of your eyes. Basically, you need to understand how the ways are, how the light rays are convergent on the eyes, the various anatomy, and how these are taken by these radiations are taken from eyes to the primary visual area of area 17 of your brain, and they cross over at the optic chiasma, and then they form the images in the on the retina, and this information is taken to the brain by the second optic nerve, the second cranial nerve, that is the optic nerve, to the brain, first to the lateral geniculate nucleus of the thalamus, and then to the through optic radiation to the primary visual area of cerebral cortex, that is the of the occipital lobe, that is the area 17. Okay, so this is all about the anatomy, the extraocular muscles, various the 6 extrinsic extraocular muscles which are present in the eyes, and the visual pathways of your eyes. Okay, so I hope you understand this, and this is all about the your eyeball, their extrinsic muscles, extraocular muscles, and the visual pathways. Thank you.